"You don't touch the flag," I told him, barely above a whisper, but somehow that voice cut straight through the chaos of the airport like it had a purpose, like it had been waiting for years to finally be spoken at exactly that moment. People froze, phones halfway to their faces, luggage left behind, and for a second, all the nonsense that fills a busy terminal just vanished. I didn't even blink as the airport manager hovered his hand over the casket. Stars and stripes stretched tight, the final shield for the man inside. It was just another delay for most folks, another blip on the schedule, but for me, that flag, well, it was a line you do not cross, not for convenience, not for some on-time record. What nobody saw was the reason behind it, the story that started long before this place, somewhere under a desert sky, where the promise I was keeping got written in blood. I'll tell you about that in a second, but just know, the man in that casket saved my life. And trust me, the real shock wasn't even here yet. It was still making its way toward us, stripes on its shoulders, ready to change everything. Let me back up a sec. This wasn't my first time in Washington, D.C.'s International Airport, but it was the first time I felt this heavy. I'd worn the uniform for years, white gloves, shoes polished until you could see yourself, the Tomb Guard badge right over my heart. I was supposed to be unshakable, steady as stone. But today I wasn't at the tomb. I was here, in this swirling mess of noise and movement, on duty to bring home a brother who'd asked me, once upon a time, to do it right. Private First Class Daniel Walsh. Danny to everyone who ever really loved him. Just 25, a laugh that could fill a tent even in the darkest night. A kid who dreamed of flying and loved baseball so much you'd think he was born with a mitt in his hand. We made a promise, Seif. I don't make it. You bring me home with honor, okay? 3 days ago, that stopped being a joke. Danny was gone, killed on a mission nobody talks about. Now, his flag-draped casket was on the tarmac, and I was the one who had to make sure no one let him down. Every step I took was for Danny, for his mother, Maggie, a nurse who'd survived too many wars, her face a map of every story she'd lived waiting with her granddaughter, Emma, on the other side of security. Emma's just a kid, but today her eyes were old. "Grandma, is that Danny's plane?" she whispered. Maggie couldn't even answer, just squeezed Emma's hand until they both hurt, I guess. I'd seen families like there's 1,000 times, but today it was different. Because today, the line between my duty and my heart was gone. But you want to know how trouble starts? It's always someone chasing their own little record. Up in some glass office, there's James Thornton, the airport manager, obsessed with numbers, on-time rates, his little empire of blinking screens and certificates on the wall. When he heard about the military procession coming through the main terminal, he saw only a disruption. "We can't have this," he snapped to his assistant. "Use the service corridor. Reroute them." But the director had already signed off on the route. That didn't matter to him. To folks like Thornton, this was a problem, not a promise. Meanwhile, I stood like a statue, but my mind was drifting 3 days back, hearing those words for the first time. Private First Class Daniel Walsh, killed in action. The assignment fell to me. Escort him home. I'd kept a photograph in my breast pocket since basic training, and Danny, arms slung over each other, dust in our hair, smiles wide as the sky. He was all heart, the kind of guy who jumps first and figures it out on the way down. I was always the careful one who teased me about it every night. "You think too much, Sam. Sometimes you gotta just feel it." Over time, that rivalry turned into the kind of brotherhood you can't explain. Afghanistan nearly broke us, but it's Danny's laughter. I remember how it cut through fear, how it kept us moving. He'd say, "You're my compass, Sam. I lead, you keep us heading right." Those words stuck. They became my anchor. On our third tour, everything changed. An ambush gunfire, shouting, Danny's voice cutting through the madness. "Sam, on your left." He slammed me to the ground as bullets snapped past our heads 3 seconds, and he saved my life. Afterward, he brushed it off. That's what brothers do. But something in his eyes had shifted. He started talking about Home Moore's mom, little Emma, who sent him crayon drawings calling him Uncle Danny the hero. He kept one taped inside his helmet, said it was good luck. The night before his last mission, we sat outside, both of us pretending not to feel the weight in the air. "If anything happens," he said, not even grinning, "bring me home right." through the main concourse. Dad would have wanted it done right. I nodded and I meant it. But 3 days later, Danny didn't come back. The details are all classified, just static now. But the promise was real. That's why, as his plane touched down and they brought his casket out, I was there. And nothing was going to get between me and keeping that promise. The honor guard formed up, every movement a ritual, slow and deliberate, the flag on his casket burning brighter than anything else around. I stepped beside it, my uniform aflare against all that bland airport gray. That's when Thornton came storming down the terminal, waving a clipboard like it meant more than the flag on Danny's casket. Service corridors, he ordered his team. No disruptions. Sarah, a young security officer, hesitated, her eyes on the casket, then back to him. Sir, the director already approved the main route. Thornton waved her off. This was his domain. No parades in his terminal. The procession started. Each step measured, like time slowed down around us. Travelers noticed, some stopped, some stared, some just let their phones drop, realizing this wasn't just another delay. I kept my face locked down, but I held onto that photo in my pocket, the promise heavy as lead. Then, right before we reached the main doors, Thornton stepped in front of us, holding a map, voice sharp. Sergeant, I prepared an alternative route. Service corridors, straight to pickup. Faster for everyone. I didn't hesitate. This is Private First Class Daniel Walsh, United States Army. He will go through the main terminal with full honors. Thornton's face hardened. These corridors exist for a reason, no disruptions. I met his eyes. The dishonor of skulking through a back hallway would last forever. The delay is temporary. He called Sarah again, signaling her to stop us, but her eyes dropped to the flag. You could see the battle in her face, a young woman caught between orders and something bigger. That's when the crowd started growing. An old man in a Vietnam cap stepped forward, his voice rough but clear. This soldier deserves better than a back hallway. His words rippled through the crowd. Folks put down their phones. Parents hushed their kids. Even a businessman with somewhere to be just paused. Maggie and Emma moved up, too. Maggie's voice shaking but strong. My Danny loved baseball. He died saving his squad. He deserves this honor. Thornton, no, he wasn't done. He actually tried to stop the procession, hand out, voice trembling with frustration. Sergeant, I'm ordering you. I didn't let him finish. There are regulations older than this airport, older than your badge. That flag is not for you to touch. His hand brushed the fabric. Everyone sucked in a breath. Instinct took over. I grabbed his wrist, firm but not violent, and I told him, don't touch the flag. You could have heard a pin drop. It wasn't just me talking. It was every promise, every funeral, every flag ever folded for a family who'd lost someone. Thornton yanked his hand back, red-faced, threatening security, but nobody moved. The crowd had shifted. Veterans straightened up. Travelers bowed their heads. Sarah stepped back, radio untouched. Even Emma, her voice cut through the silence. That's Danny's flag. And I saw Maggie's eyes, pure gratitude and loss all mixed together. Right then, Captain Evelyn Carter appeared, airport director, a retired Army officer. She walked up, took one look, and saw everything for what it was. Mr. Thornton, step aside, she said, her voice ice cold but fair. To me, she just nodded. Sergeant, your procession will continue as planned. And then, picking up the mic, she called the terminal to attention. A fallen soldier is being escorted through our terminal. Please join us in forming a corridor of honor. You could feel the whole place shifted. Businessmen stood at attention. Flight attendants cried. A man in a wheelchair struggled to stand, his wife supporting him. Travelers lined the corridor, heads bowed. A living tunnel of respect as we passed through, silent except for the sound of careful footsteps and the flutter of the flag. No more arguments, just reverence. At the end, the hearse waited, polished black and ready. We placed Danny's casket inside, flag, still bright as ever. Maggie took my hand, tears in her eyes, but pride too. You kept your promise, Sam, she said. I handed her that photograph, the one of me and Danny, and Emma placed a daisy on the casket. You're my hero, Danny, she whispered. Even from a distance, folks were crying or standing in silence, paying their respects. Thornton approached, his defiance gone. "Sergeant, I was wrong," he managed. I just nodded. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't need words. The hearse pulled away, Danny going home one last time, and I held my salute until it disappeared. What started as a bureaucratic fight turned into a moment nobody there would ever forget, a reminder that sometimes traditions matter more than speed, more than numbers. That night, I returned to the tomb. The stars watched as I walked my post 21 steps, a pause, 21 steps back. Same as always. But the promise in my chest burned a little brighter. In a world that rushes to forget, sometimes you have to stand still. For Danny, for every soldier who never made it home, and for those who keep their word, even when nobody's watching. So, what do you think? Was I right to stand my ground? Or should I have just followed orders? Where do we draw the line between rules and what's right? Share your thoughts, because stories like Danny's deserve to be remembered, and it's up to us to keep those memories alive.